This video is sponsored by your mum.
Yeah man, Super Purples, my name is Bless Beats, SP-202 Mark IV, SP-404 Mark II. We're gonna do a review of this machine right here. I took a long time to review this machine because first of all, I know that these updates will come out and rectify some of the initial problems. What you're gonna find in this here review, particularly, is the initial shortcomings that have been fixed. Why is the SP-404 Mark II much better than the legacy SPs? Shortcomings that have not been fixed. Who is this here machine for? And a little bit more thoughts about it, you know what I'm saying? So if you're in the buy it or not phase, they should probably sort it out for you, you know what I'm saying? Let's set it off. Number one, regular pitch. The old SPs could not pitch for shit. The SP-202 could do it. For some reason, the 303, the 404, the 404A, the SX, the pitching was just terrible. Here we can finally regular up and down pitch shift and semitone. That alone is brilliant. Picking a sample, going into pitch right here, we have a couple of different options. Holding down shift, we can have it set to the regular vinyl mode, which is just pitching it in semitones up or down. Then you can set the BPM and have it adhere to a couple of different options, such as the vinyl no mode. This will essentially keep the formant and time stretch it like in a lot of the other ones. And then there's the backing mode and the ensemble mode in the latest update, which makes it sound a little bit different. They suit or better for repitching. Chromatic pitch shift, spread it out across the pads like so. Huge step up. Envelope to shape your sample. Brilliant. Of course, sample editing, also a giant step up. We have a visual representation of the waveform. We can chop the sample up in several different ways. Easily just copy it to another pad if you want to chop it up that manual way, or in one of the chopping modes right here. The roll function to audition the end of a sample when you're editing it. So much more better sample editing capabilities than the older generations. New step sequencer, nice bonus for those who like that. The build quality, the buttons, and especially the pads and this aluminum build here. Not so much the knobs. They feel a bit flimsy, but everything else way more step up than the older ones. DJ mode right here is a pretty cool addition. You can just throw a bunch of beats in here and load them up like a virtual little turntable deck, you know what I'm saying? Channel 1, channel 2, all your controllers on there, wonderfully displayed. Now with a crossfader since the latest update, which of course helps out immensely. It could do with a few more improvements, but it's so easy to just load up a beat. One on each channel right about around there, and then you can have at it. You can cue through the headphones, perform your little sets. You can add effects to it, even so. A lot of fun with that, but the question is, in this state, do you feel a little bit like you have more control being outside of the DJ mode and having all of your samples instantly available at your fingertips? Arguably so, but we loving the idea. Using the USB-C input to sample phones or other USB audio, class compliant devices, very cool. Also, it links up nicely with the machine, for example. Right now, both USB MIDI and audio is automatically connected between the two. Amazing. Multiple effect slots. 2 effects that you can assign to any given sample. Of course, they share whatever effects are assigned to these slots, these 2 buses right here. But then there's also bus 3M4, where we can, in fact, add 2 master effects that are applied to everything coming out of the SP-404. Some routing options also. We now have a lot of possibilities right about around here to save different presets with effects on them. We can even so change the direct effects, which effects are assigned to these buttons right about around there. We could not do that before. And here is the big and am I right? The sensitivity to community input. First of all, pretty frequent updates, relatively frequent updates where they actually listen to what we were talking about, critiquing and feedbacking, but also paying attention to what was going on in the community before. Like, for example, we see that people are putting stickers on their SPs. Let's capitalize on that. Make it easy to customize. Let's encourage it. Customizable startup screen. Choke groups, link groups, bulk edit capabilities. For example, let's have these bass sounds mute each other. Now, not only do they choking each other like a fierce murderer, you know what I'm saying? You can also do bulk edit actions such as changing the pitch of all of them at the same time. Or perchance the envelope. Anything you wish, you feel me? That is a brilliant addition. Linking 2 pads together. For example, number 4 and number 11. What happens when we press one of them right now? We trigger both at the same time. That is beautiful. You can see here already, functionality wise, we're getting closer to something like a Mashida or an MPC, except a little brother, little sister, little sibling version of it. Skipback, very nice. Constant ability to grab whatever was going on 25 seconds back, or now, as of the latest update, 40 seconds back, and capture golden moments. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful. The input from the USB, the mic and guitar input right here, the external source, and the main inputs. The main outputs and the phones have slightly different routing, so there's some capabilities when it comes to routing. For example, you can choose whether you want to sample what's coming in and what's playing on the device at the same time. You could choose to sample only what's coming in externally. So you could have a drum beat running here and at the same time sample a guitar or a microphone, for example, in here, and have a clean recording of only the guitar or the microphone on a pad. You can resample through the effects. You can have a device run through it and just go straight to the main output, bypassing all the bus effects. You can even, with some workarounds, resample internally and only sample what you're playing at the moment. So you could actually mute a sound, but have it set up so that the muted sounds are routed only to the phones, while you listen to whatever you're playing through the main outputs and still hearing, for example, a drum beat through the phones only. You can resample a sound internally and have a clean recording of only that. It's a little bit of a workaround. I wish there was a smoother way to do it, but the routing capabilities are far more extensive than the older parents and grandparents of this son of a bitch right here. Cueing sounds, very smooth. This will allow you to listen to sounds playing through the headphones only. So if you're having a live show and you have a bunch of sounds going, you could preview the next sound about to play. You could do the same thing in the DJ mode, of course. What else I love about this? The A, and I think the SX2 had this, but you can have 16 different projects, and it's a little bit more manageable with the software. Plenty of more features. We're scratching the surface here, but those are the ones that really stand out to me. Of course, the pattern sequencer is light years ahead of the older ones. Setting the length of the bars, strength of the quantizing, which grid you want to quantize it to, real-time or step sequencing mode in version 2.0. Even though it is still a bit cumbersome, the sequence with the pattern sequencer on here, it is way better than the parents and grandparents, like I just said. You know what I'm saying? It is not an MPC or a machine by any means yet. There's a lot that could be improved still, but it is so much better. I think still, the resampling method is where it is strongest. More about that later. Let us talk about some fixed shortcomings. Some things that bothered me in the beginning that they have already fixed with either the previous or this latest update right about around here. The chromatic pitch mode could not be sequenced before. Now you can sequence it in the pattern sequencer. Number two thing, now we have different play modes. Poly mode, obviously play multiple notes at the same time. Mono mode, monophonic, re-triggers the note every time. Legato mode, my most requested. You can do things like bend the notes like that. Beautiful thing. I'm not sure if you can do it yet. I haven't looked into it close enough, but hopefully you can set the glide time of it also. There's also a little bug in here, but they have been made aware of it since, and that is that these notes do not receive a note off command if you activate an effect. So you'll have a hanging note there depending on which setting you have. They will get to it and fix that. Multi-selecting like the mute groups, the pad link, and changing the pitch of it at the same time. Before it used to be only a couple of parameters like the pitch, for example. Now we can actually take some sounds right about around here and change other parameters such as the envelope. So we can change the attack of them all at the same time by holding down the copy button. I don't know if this was introduced in the very latest update, but we can now batch import samples. Holding down Shift, you can grab all of these at the same time. Very nice, but say now I want to go back in and get some more samples from in there. I would like it to remember which folder I was in, so I don't have to navigate all the way back there again. And the second thing is you can't really multi-select odd samples. Like if I wanted to select blue balls 1, blue balls 12, and blue balls 16, there's not really a way to do that. And then you will have to do this navigationalizing thing where you go through a bunch of folders just to get back to where you were loading the samples. If you go out from the import menu, you know what I'm saying? You can now get a pattern running and go out of the pattern menu without having it stop and trigger a bunch of other samples, or do whatever you want to, but keep the pattern running in the background. Not possible before. Check them out. Now you can find the zero crossing of a sample when you're editing it really quickly. Just by pressing the remain button right there, it's going to snap automatically to the first zero crossing, meaning you don't get that click or pop when you're triggering. Let us talk quickly about the shortcomings that have not been fixed. For one, I understand they wanted to be creative with all these effects, but these ha-do and Zanzu and Kodama, these effects, I don't find them, for one, particularly useful. They're kind of shitty. And number two, you don't understand instantly what it does. Like if you're familiar with what an effect does, we know what a reverb is, we know what a chorus is, we know the Juno chorus, we know the flanger, all of that, all good. We have it and for an applicable case. But these effects, Togu Roll, Zanzu, Kodu Ma, Cat Hadu, most of those really just feel like fillers, to be honest. Other than that, I really love that they covered everything from the 303 vinyl sim to the 404 vinyl sim, having these different variations of them, so to speak. And that we're already beginning on the third page of effects here. So hopefully we're going to get even more effects in future updates. It's a little bit hard to manage chopped up samples for demonstration analyzing purposes. Let's chop this sample up, hold shift and press start and end. All right, now I have these 16 chops that I want to lay out. I will have to use that real estate as I chop it up. I wish we could just keep all of the marks and sort of dive into a pad like you can with the machine. You can chop a sample up and that sample is going to live within one pad. You just open a menu and it expands. You get all the chops across the pads without using an entire group or an entire bank, as it's called here. Check them out, assigned to pad. All right, so now we need to find a space where we have 16 empty pads. And then we have to use that real estate, you know what I'm saying? Could be solved a little bit more better. The pitch change limit, I don't understand this. Why can we only go up to +7 semitones and -12? This is a real buzzkill, a workflow killer, you know what I'm saying? If I want to go above 7 semitones, I actually have to resample that sound, pitched up 7 semitones, and pitch it up even more. And then if I want to go even further than that, I have to resample it again to pitch it up more. You know what I'm saying? There shouldn't really be a limit, or there should be a much wider range to decide how much you could pitch your samples up and down. Same thing in a chromatic mode. If we go into chromatic mode right here, I want to be able to go up and down as far as I want. They added scale modes in here, which is also brilliant. But here, why are we not making use of this space right here, which is graying out, disabling these pads right here to make a scale out of it? But you might as well just compress these pads and have a bigger range accessible at the same time. Then there's the battery life. The battery life is pretty shitty. You can solve that with an external power bank, but why not just fix that from the beginning, have a more convenient way, a nicer, because a lot of the charm in this machine right here is the portability, right? That's why a lot of us are suckers for it, or one big reason. So why have it run on AA batteries and die after 1.5, 2 hours? No built-in stereo to mono conversion, that would be nice. Buttons and pads feel great, absolutely fucking terrific, you know what I'm saying? But the knobs don't. You'll notice that when you're getting a little bit more granular with the sample editing, that sometimes it can get jittery. And just imagine in 10 years time with these flimsy knobs, I just don't imagine that the life of them is going to be eternal. We used to have a lot of random freezes. Much better now, that is fixed. The envelope is kind of tripping on the finish line. It's a much better improvement that we can now use these different modes, playback modes for the samples in chromatic mode. The scale thing, that's also a beautiful addition, but the envelopes are a little bit lackluster, especially in the loop mode, you know what I'm saying? Going into editing right here, let's say we turn the loop on and I want to kind of extend it. I could turn the ping pong mode on and extend it like that, and it's going to be a little bit better, but we can't really do much with the envelope. For example, now it's set to gate, right? I want to be able to, for example, extend the release so that when I let go of it, it plays a little bit longer and kind of plays on the loop point instead. The release is based on the loop point. Now it's just When I drop it, it stops abruptly. We could do it without the gate mode. But not with the loop. This is essentially just a directly affecting envelope, like right here where the loop point starts, the volume fades out and then it goes back and then it just bounces. There's a direct relation, the two, and it should not be. It should just be, the envelope should be independent, if that makes sense. So with melodic sounds, sound design wise, we're still pretty limited. It's a very rudimentary sampler in that sense, even though we're going in the right direction. Adding things also like setting the crossfade in this ping pong mode would be great. A little bit more better envelopes is all I'm asking for, you know what I'm saying? Resample internally to a separate bus. Here, it is already quite the beauty, right? We can have sounds playing here. And then we can go into the input settings and set it to sample only the external input. Now when I record something, it's going to sample only the external input and not whatever is playing at the moment. We can also set it to mix, and that's going to mix the two of them. Meaning that we're going to resample whatever is playing here and at the same time sample what's going into it. That is also a beautiful thing. But how about a third option here? A third opzione, right? Hear me out, where we select to not resample certain internal sounds. Like I said, we could do it through a workaround by setting the mute groups. I mean muting certain samples, like that one, for example, right there, and have that running out through only the headphones. So we would play that through the headphones and then sample something else internally. But it's just not the most smoothest way. Maybe there can be a simpler solution for that. While it'd also be nice to be able to utilize the software and manage samples and projects and whatnot just by using the SD card and not plugging the whole damn thing in with a USB connection. So, who is it for? If you've never made beats before, you're a complete noob, I would not suggest you to get this. It's a little bit more complicated than other hardware. If you really put your mind to it and you want to learn how to make beats, you could probably do it with one of these, but don't let the price and how easy it looks for professional beat makers fool you. So if you never made beats before, you want to get into it and you're dead set on using hardware and getting into sampling and whatnot, if you're a determined person, sure, yeah. Otherwise, risk of you falling off, quite big, you know what I'm saying? Even to the intermediate, if you know a little bit about making beats and you want to try out your first piece of hardware, your first hardware sampler, the SP-404 Mark II is not the most intuitive and simple way to go when it comes to learning it. I would rather go with an MPC or a Machina in that case. The experienced beatmaker, the connoisseur, the intermediate to decent level beatmaker or producer already know your way around sampling, maybe dabbled with some other machines. But this will be your first piece of hardware. Yeah, you're gonna pick it up pretty quickly. Do you really need it though? Depends on where you're coming from. If you've always made beats on an MPC or a machine or any type of hardware sampler sequencer like that, I think you're probably going to enjoy it. If you're coming from something like Ableton Live, FL Studio, Logic Pro, and this is your first piece of hardware, I see a lot. The tendency is that these people drop it too a lot, unfortunately. This machine right here is not for making very complex productions and stuff. It's if you want to puzzle some loops together, have some fun with some sound design, put together, you know, a little bit more raw beats, things of that nature. You're not going to have that virtuoso soundtrack production, you know what I'm saying, but you can make some really interesting stuff and play around with sound. So one option would be to have this as sort of a sound palette, experimenting with samples and incorporating it in other productions. Other use cases, your productions aren't that necessarily that complicated. They're just dope, loop based, beats. Another nice use case if you're jamming over loops, if you're good with improvising on, for example, a guitar. Check them around, non-juror, for example. You have a couple loops running and you want to jam with your electric guitar over it or another instrument like that. Great for that. Using it only as an effects unit. Great for that. Using it for playing your beats back live. Having full beats on here, using the DJ mode, or just triggering the samples and keeping your whole library of favorite beats and bringing it to shows and putting effects on it. Great use case for that. This is not a replacement for something like the machine or the MPC, like I said, but it is a brilliant little machine and I would highly recommend it for that. Portability wise, like I said, it does suck a little bit that it doesn't have a built-in battery and that the battery life is fairly short. You know what I'm saying? You should think about getting a power bank if what you're looking for is an escape into nature or escape away from the computer, which is the appeal for a lot of people also who are into machines like this. That portable appeal, you know what I'm saying? I have to admit personally, when I'm in here, when I have all these machines around me, this is not the fastest way to get from A to B. It's the best attempt so far at having something portable that does everything a sampler sequencer, everything that you expect a sampler sequencer to do in 2022, you know what I'm saying? This is what I wanted from the SP-404A when it came out. So I'm very impressed by it. If we could just iron out those little things, still has the potential to become even greater. Right now, it's more like, yeah, it's a really dope little travel buddy and you can have fun with it on the couch, in the toilet, in the bedroom with the missus, but replacing the primary gear for a lo-fi producer, I can see that happening if you're not really doing that much with your productions. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be your primary gear. It's going to be a extra buddy pal, you know what I'm saying? A beloved one, but not the center of attention. Hope that helped you make a decision. I hope this little review of mine is useful to you. Join us in the black hole for weekly sample flip challenges. Soundation.com for the best real-time collab. Bless up for a discount, you know what I'm saying? And shout out to all the patrons. Astronauts. Okay, bye-bye.